Welcome to another handcrafted episode of the Cigar Social Podcast. This is episode 17. My name is Matt. Thanks for joining. Today we have a special guest remotely. This man dabbled in a few interesting careers, including a finance director, political consultant, even worked public affairs for a while. But now he's the co-founder and CEO of Blue Run Whiskey. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Montgomery. Thanks for joining.
Matt? How are you today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. You?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's we're the day after we finished 3 consecutive days of flight series selling online, and that was exciting. But it's also good for that to be over with, and we'll move on to some other things.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say happy birthday to Blue Run. I believe Blue Run turns 2 today.
Yeah. Today,
so that's
exactly. Today. Thank you so much. It's really exciting. Today is
milestone.
Is in fact, our it's it feels like it's been a very long time, and also it's flown by. It's really kind of a crazy feeling because it's exciting to have made it this far, but there's still so far to go. So a lot of room to grow, a lot of things we have to learn, a lot of things we have to get better at, and hopefully, some of the things that have made people happy we can maintain and improve as well.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing Blue Run in coming up with new things in the future, and I just dabbled into it, and I can't wait to dive into more. So I'm going to start with just telling our listeners what I'm smoking. I'm smoking the Espinosa Murcielago. This is the box-pressed 6x52 Toro. Eric Espinosa blended this in collaboration with his friend AJ Fernandez. The Murcielago is a box-pressed cigar, like I mentioned, Nicaraguan binder and fillers with a Mexican San Andreas wrapper. The thing is stunning from the eye, and it's also got one of those attractive bands on it that kind of pulls you in when you get into a humidor and you can't really decide. This thing is the type of thing that you see from across the room and kind of walk up to. This thing is well balanced,
kind of like a butterfly.
Yeah, exactly, like a butterfly that's silver or gold or iridescent, and some of very attractive, catches the eye. I always say, like, when you walk into a humidor, you walk into a store with big giant whiskey aisles, even somebody like me, even if I know what I'm walking in there for, I still stand there for a minute and scratch my head like, wow, what do I want? And the eye test is usually one of those things where it triggers the hand motion of grabbing it off the shelf. So yeah, same thing, just like the blue, beautiful bottles that you guys make, the Espinosa cigar is the same thing. Good flavor, good smoke, cokey. Yeah, exactly. Cocoa, sweet spices, kind of like a smack of like pepper on the finish, but a big fan of it. Now to the bottle, and this is where I'm interested and excited. And so, just a quick backstory: the cigar group that I'm a part of, we had what we call a HERF, and that's when a bunch of cigar smokers get together and kind of smoke cigars and BS for the day or whatever. Somebody turned me on. They had the bottle, and obviously, like you said, the label, the butterfly caught my eye, and I'm like, let's try it. Let's crack it open. And it was this one that I'm going to be tasting first because I have 2 samples from your team. This is the Blue Run Reflection 1, straight bourbon. Castle and Key Distillery, released in April of 2022, 95 proof, copper color, MSRP about $100 or so, depending on where you get it from. It's awesome. I had it. I'm gonna obviously enjoy it again. But that immediately triggered me to reach out to your team and say, how do I talk to you? How do I learn more about it? I want to know, more. Nose, you get the apricot, the honey, seasoned oak. On the palate, you get the cinnamon, burnt oak. And then on the finish, I believe, is a rye spicy, dry leather, and layered oak. I'm going to go and and sip a little bit if you want to talk a little bit more about the Reflection 1.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you like it. Reflection 1 is kind of it's very meaningful to myself and another co-founder of mine, who, during, I guess, 2020 into 2021, there were some crazy things going on, and for most people in the world, there were crazy things going on. But there were some health scares in our families that kind of upended a lot of life, and stirred a lot of emotions, and it was definitely a trying time. Also a trying time because we're trying to launch this business at the same time. There are some pretty crazy things going on, not only in the world but on our lives, and so at one point in time, I had asked for samples of some barrels to be sent to me, and what I had asked for was a handful of samples from a number of barrels, and what I got was like a crate full of samples from the same barrel. It's like, okay, great. First, they've drained a barrel, essentially providing me samples. But secondly, like this isn't what what I was looking for. So I decided to proof it down a little bit from, I think it came in at like, I don't know, 121 or 122 or something like that. And I proofed it down, and it's like, man, this is really good. Not that it wasn't good at 121 or 122, but given the complexities of life, I wasn't looking for 122 or a punch in the face, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you don't need that full proof to get what you're looking for. And what I found is that this Reflection 1 at this proof was like probably more dangerous to me than cast strength, because it's easily approachable. It's somebody the other day called it "fall off your porch good." You don't realize that you're 1 or 2 or 3 pours in. So it's sneaky in a way, but we decided to name it after the state of mind that it put us in when we drank it. And I found that I became much more reflective, much more focused on the things that mattered, calmed me down, right? Focused me. And so, Reflection 1, it was Reflection Roman numeral number 1, because, the likelihood of being able to maintain consistency in this is not necessarily the goal. It's to find, other ways to bring this reflective state of mind. So you'll see Reflection 2 and 3 and 5, and hopefully, if we're lucky enough to get there, 10 and beyond, as we go. But I love it. I think it's just I think the kids younger than us would say it's crushable.
Crushable. Yeah, it's got it, immediately that great flavor. Just a little bit of a burn, but nothing unbearable. It's got that nice like reminder that you have a good solid whiskey in your hand. But the flavor is just outstanding. Again, that's what kind of triggered my immediate need to follow up with you guys and learn more. And I also heard or read something that you have this TV show featuring Atlanta rapper Killer Mike that kind of inspired also like the thought train of the reflection portion of the way of life and kind of how the meaning behind it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So my wife actually does some consulting on the I guess it's a public broadcasting uh, uh, TV/radio show that's coming from Atlanta. And Killer Mike just really, I don't know how if you're a fan, but he kind of helps put a lot of things in perspective. The
Yeah.
dude's he's incredibly deep. He's incredibly intelligent, um, and he's able to zero in, I think, on what's important. And so, yeah, I'm glad you heard that. I don't know where you heard that, but that's awesome that you knew that.
Um, yeah, no, I want to kind of watch some more of that too. Like I said, he just kind of focuses in uh, on what's important in life and kind of reminds you. So yeah, that's awesome. So let's take baby steps here at first. We got a lot to unwrap. Let's just get started from the start. What inspired you to pursue the whiskey industry?
Oh, well, it's a really good question, and I've thought a lot about that. I think that over the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years of my career, um, I got to this point where I had this entrepreneurial itch, right? I needed to do something that uh, that was kind of my own in a way. I had a number of clients, and a lot of people say, like, when you've got your own business, it's like, yeah, I've got a lot of clients, which means I have a lot of bosses. And sometimes they listen, right? And most of the time they don't. And you know, it's like I felt that I was putting forth a lot of my creative effort, creative energy, and ideas into other people's companies. And you know, it would I think generally lead to successful outcomes for them. But the reality is it did not lead to a successful outcome for me always, because it's like if my job is to go in and solve problems, and I solve problems and the problems are gone, then it's just kind of like on to the next. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, so I was looking for something where I could apply my ideas to a business that I was behind. Um, and it took a number of different fits and starts and iterations. Um, but it kind of started with uh, this. I won't go into details, but a patent process that a few of actually my Blue Run co-founders and I were working on, and um, that actually led to a phone call from one of my co-founders named Jesse McKnight, um, who grew up in Georgetown, Kentucky, went to UK, and one day, like out of the blue, he called me and said, "Hey, somebody wants to sell me some barrels of bourbon. What do you think we should do?" And my first response was like, "Well, how much are they?" Right? And my next thought was like, it doesn't sound like that's a business. It's only a couple barrels. There's nothing there. But I just couldn't get it out of my head. It was like just stuck in there. And
Right.
like you, and probably like a lot of our friends, I've romanticized the idea of bourbon. Um, right? It's really, there's a dreamy quality to it, I think. Um, and so, like I said, it just got stuck in my head. And so, a number of weeks later, I called him back and said, "Hey, how many more barrels do you think are out there?" And he said, "Well, how many do you want?" Like, I don't know, but more than that first phone call. And so that was kind of the starting point for I guess the next creative process, which was, how do we, if we're going to do this, I shouldn't say how, but if we're going to do this, how will we differentiate ourselves, right? Because there's so many brands out there. In my opinion, a lot of them are just homogenous. Right? You line them up, maybe the bottle shape is different, but the reality is most of them use paper labels, and they're usually tan, and maybe they use brown script writing, and they're called old or ancient or named after a Confederate general, or, you know, something that doesn't necessarily feel modernized and connected to this diversifying society that we live in today, that needs to be more open and embracing of people from everywhere, and different cultures and different points of view. And so, I was fortunate enough to be able to pick up a phone and call a friend who works at Nike, who's leading their lifestyle design team, and he said, "Yeah, I want to do this." So I just let him at it and wanted to see what he could come up with. And he just really kind of knocked my socks off with this design, that he had come up with. And it was a little bit, Matt, like being shot out of a cannon in a way. We launched this thing like we were talking about earlier on October 22nd, 2020. Literally everyone was at home. Not a lot of traffic on the streets, nobody going to liquor stores, and so we launched at this time that a lot of people at the time questioned what we were doing. Like, why are you doing this? And
why are you doing this, and why now? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Why now? And so the why now, I think, was the easiest part to answer, which was, like, we had heard through the grapevine that a lot of companies were delaying product releases, right? So what that did is it cleared the field. And usually October, November, December are, that is prime time for product sales. And, like, with not a lot of activity there from other, competitive activity from other companies, and people looking for new experiences, I think we kind of nailed the timing really well. Though it did take us, like, I want to say 2 weeks to sell out our first drop, and that was like pins and needles for me. Because it's like you're watching your creation, you're hoping people are going to like it. You just don't know. When you put yourself out there publicly, there can be 2 ways, or maybe 3 ways that it can go. People love it, people hate it, or they're indifferent. I guess I could have settled for the loving it or the indifference, but the hating it was going to be crushing. And luckily, people liked it. Second release sold out faster than that, I think half the time. And then from there on out, it just kept it kept accelerating. And we're like, I don't know what it is, 11, 12 releases into our life cycle. And when we launched, the thought process was, we're gonna do 1 release a quarter. All right, we're gonna max out at 1 release a quarter. That's enough. And now all of a sudden, it's like, you look at last holiday season, you look at this holiday season, it's like, we're really knocking out some hitters, and it's kind of fun.
So Blue Run was started by a group of friends and bourbon lovers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a Nike designer, you have a Facebook's first director level employee, a hospitality executive, a political advisor, and philanthropist. And recently, you've added a scientist to your team, which. Can you tell me about the first lady of Blue Run and how Shaylin Gammon will shape the future of Blue Run?
Oh yeah, we are like, I mean, we hit a home run, I think. Shaylin is, she is already, I think, at the top of her class. What we did is we were looking for someone like her. And so we started looking around at products that we really liked, and she just was the obvious choice, I think. We're lucky to work with Jim Rutledge. Jim is fantastic, legend, right? Just a legend, and somebody who is he's such a joy to talk to. Right? For as good as he is with whiskey, he's an even better person. And there's no difference with Shaylin. They're both perfectionists. They both have an ability to, I think, sprinkle pixie dust into whiskey in a way that I don't think others can. It's just it's incredible. So Shaylin's already put her stamp on what we've done. The batch 2 of Golden Rye, Reflection 1, but most recently the Flight series. And I think the Flight series is some of the best whiskey I've ever tasted, regardless of where it came from, age statement, who distilled it, any of that. You just blind me, and I think it's just like, it's just mind blowing. And she really just took the ball and ran with it, and it was a fun idea and a fun project for her. And it's that I think it's very challenging for someone to take what I think was like 19 barrels and come up with 6 distinct blends that have flavor profiles that are so different from each other. And she's just got the touch. She's great. And I think that we could have been fine on our own. We can be great with her. And that's really the goal, is just continuing to add high caliber people first and foremost. And then, creative geniuses like Shaylin, and Jim, and our partner at Nike, Devin McKinney. That's one of the things that Jim first told us, the first time we met Jim, was that it doesn't matter. Let me take that back. What the bottle looks like will get people to buy there first. What's inside will get them coming back. And so we think we've done a pretty good job of nailing the packaging. And Shaylin was just one more piece that we were looking for, that would help us nail, like Jim says, what's on the inside. And we think there's a long runway available with Shaylin to just continue to, I guess, make magic happen. And so we're lucky to have the opportunity to work with Shaylin. We got to get you on a podcast with her at some point in time, because she's just truly dynamic. And we're lucky, man. We're really lucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anytime. So in Georgetown, Kentucky's Royal Spring, what co-founder Jesse McKnight called the Blue Run as a kid, which is also the birthplace of bourbon back in 1789. Why did Jesse call it Blue Run? Why is it called Blue Run? And then a follow-up, why did you decide to use Blue Run as the name of the brand?
Yeah, it's actually a really cool story. So Jesse grew up literally across the street from Elijah Craig's property. And,
Wow.
when I say like across the street, it's like, I don't know if you played with a Nerf football as a kid, but like, on a windy day, it's really tough to make that thing go where you want it to, unless you dunk it in a bucket of water. Right?
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
And so on a super windy day in Georgetown, Kentucky, Jesse could stand on his front porch and throw a dry Nerf football and nail what is now, Elijah Craig's front door. And so way back in the day, Elijah Craig was using water from Royal Spring to make his bourbon. And that's what he credited with being kind of the differentiator for him. Fast forward, or I guess I shouldn't say fast forward, but yeah, let's fast forward. So Jesse grew up playing in and around Royal Spring, doing something called frog gigging, which I've learned is like catching frogs, and it's a term that I wasn't familiar with. But anyway, Jesse called Royal Spring the Blue Run, and that emanates from the fact that that Elijah Craig's church was called the Blue Run Baptist Church. And a run is a stream in certain parlance and in the English language. It's, again, not a term that I grew up with. But somehow, Jesse's dad was a history buff. Jesse was a history major. Their neighbor who owns the Elijah Craig property was a history professor at Georgetown College in Georgetown. And so that's just kind of what Jesse grew up calling Royal Spring, was the Blue Run. And so it's really fun to take that historical narrative and tie it to what we're doing now and what we are planning on building in Georgetown. Not only from a bourbon perspective, but from the fact that this Blue Run name to me has great historical ties. So it's tethered to the heritage of the industry, but it also feels modernized, right?
Yeah.
It's not the name of a person, who's long since deceased for hundreds of years, and so it also fits really well in a bottle. It rolls off the tongue. It's not like trying to pronounce like Lafroig, so it's approachable. And one of the things that we really wanted to do when we were working on the concepts for Blue Run was make it approachable, make it so that if someone walked into a bar, they wouldn't have trouble pronouncing it, that they could recognize it based upon the emblem, the butterfly.
Yeah.
It for us, it just popped. It really worked. And it wasn't until we were standing around Royal Spring when Jesse said, well, he's to call this the Blue Run. I was like, whoa, what?
Perfect.
Yeah. So we landed on that pretty quickly, pretty easily, and we're glad we did.
Yeah, and speaking of the butterfly, I know that the theme of the bottles and the culture of the single butterfly is, again, like if you don't even know the name, and if you're sitting at a bar and you're like, give me that butterfly bottle. Yeah. But what is the significance behind the butterfly?
Well, it's if you look at the life cycle of a butterfly, it goes through a metamorphosis, right? It experiences great change. And for us, we've seen other spirits industries experience this metamorphosis for me, it was watching Sky Vodka in the 90s, and that blue bottle was like, it was mesmerizing at the time. Um, and we've watched what's happened with tequila in a major way, right? Um, it used to be this spirit that you couldn't drink. If you did, it would go down and come straight back up, and it's now kind of back into that category that I talked about of like romanticizing certain spirits. And bourbon never had that. It never experienced that sort of that change. At the same time, I talked about this earlier, Matt, with the fact that society is really going through a metamorphosis of its own. Um, we really wanted to signify or find a way to signify change. And for us, the butterfly is the symbol of change.
No, that's makes a lot of sense putting that way. Impressive fact: 2 bourbons from Blue Run Spirits snagged top honors at the prestigious 2021 San Francisco World Spirits Competition before they were even launched to the public. The Blue Run 13.5-year single barrel bourbon was awarded best single barrel bourbon, and then 11 years in the 11 years or older category, and then they got a double gold medal. So that's impressive. But I do recall you saying that the barrel number 10 is the unicorn. Where can I find this barrel number 10?
if you because if you can find it, please let me know. That is, we had at the for those single barrels, 13.5-year single barrels. This industry luminary named Peggy No Stevens worked with us on the tasting notes, and in barrel number 10. She has this just a whip, like WHIP of smoke. And, when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then when I tasted it, it was like mind blowing for me. I mean, she nailed it perfectly. The whip of smoke is something I think unique. But these 13.5-year single barrels are like nothing I've ever had. I mean, I think those were like the real pick of the litter. Everything that you're looking for, delicate yet bold. People don't like this word smooth, but smooth yet spicy. Those were everything, and those, we sold some of those online. Some of those went to retail. But for the life of me, I would, probably I'd consider giving a kidney for one of those.
With Castle & Key being, because your products are currently being distilled by Rutledge up in Castle & Key. Is that accurate?
So we did our first runs at Castle & Key. At the moment, we're distilling with our good friends at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Okay.
And we're excited to continue with Jim and Shaylin and the Bardstown Bourbon Company team. We're also going to do some runs at a distillery that has not yet opened yet, called All Nations. Really excited about what those guys are building there as well. And we continue to want to find good ways to create unique product. Jim has a very specific way that he likes to distill. And so the requirements for us is that, if we're going to do contract distillation, Jim gets to take the keys and he gets to run with it. right? Because he's got all those things we were just talking about with those 13 and a half year single barrels. He's able to find and create if given the space and the time to do so.
Yeah, that was where I was kind of trying to figure out with Castle and Key being in operation since 2014 and now working with Bardstown. How did Blue Run acquire the 13 and a half and 14 year whiskey?
Well, I guess we timed it right. We started operations, or before we launched, we had stumbled upon some barrels, and a number of barrels, I should say, and we send samples to Jim all the time, and I think in the first, I don't know, 3-4 months, probably sent him like 15 or 20 different samples. He said no to every single one except for those barrels that became the 13 and a half, and 14 year barrels. Everything else was a straight up no, right? I began to worry because it's like, man, if Jim is saying no to so many different barrels, how are we ever going to find barrels that he's going to say yes to? Right. But that's the beauty of Jim, is like, he's got such a discerning palate. And he does not enjoy mediocrity in anything in his life. And so, it's also fun, by the way, now that Shaylin's on board, we send samples to Shaylin and Jim, and we have two very similar people who are very tough critics of the varieties of whiskey that we send them. And so one of the reasons that we're super excited to be building a distillery is because that's going to allow us to control the process a little bit more. In many instances, we jam ourselves into distillation windows wherever possible. Excuse me, I shouldn't say wherever possible, whenever possible. And it's great, but we're also scaling it to a degree that we need more barrels than we have access to. And we need more barrels that Jim and Shaylin are going to say, hey, this is really good. This is what we're looking for. And so a distillery is going to allow us that flexibility to do that flexibility to make sure that we've got the mash bills that we like, that we want, that we know resonate with people. And so, we've got great partners. We're really thrilled to be able to work with Castle and Key. While we could, they've got a very busy, they've got a very packed schedule and a lot of people wanting to work with them. Same with Bardstown Bourbon Community or Company and their, I guess now sister company with Green River. They're just, it's another example, I think, of choosing the right people to work with. Bardstown, first and foremost, great people. Like great people, great operation. A stunning facility and architecture and all the things you could want. We're expecting the same thing with All Nations and at some point in time in the future, our own operation. So if we're still making good bourbon with BBC and All Nations, we're gonna continue doing that too, because if it ain't broke, right, don't fix it.
It's true, yeah. And Castle and Key, they're actually scheduled to be on the show early next year. So
cool.
We'll be meeting with them as well. Speaking of distilleries, about a month ago, Blue Run Spirits got approval from the state of Kentucky to build a next-gen distillery, said to be $51 million investment, which could generate up to 45 full-time jobs in Georgetown, Kentucky. It's said to be the greenest, most unexpected, and most unprecedented distillery. Can you tell us a little bit more about that venture and status of that project?
Sure. Wow. Where did those words come from? Um, did I say that?
No, no, I don't know. I have to find out
Okay.
where
I
my.
love it though. That's great. That's great. So we're in the early innings of the process. Now with the announcement out of the way, um, we're working on finding a world-class architect who can put our vision onto paper and then into reality. Um, we've locked up a significant amount of land in Georgetown, which is for those who haven't been to Georgetown, I highly suggest going. Um, it's a really fascinating place. It's a little bit of it's growing into a big city, but it still has a bit of a Mayberry feel to it, which is incredible. Um, a main street that's you know uh, it's bustling and wonderful, and yet they've also got the largest Toyota plant, I think the largest auto manufacturing plant in North America. Um, so
Wow.
there's like 10,000 people working at Toyota. International business travel nonstop. Uh, we're just down the street from a brewery called Country Boy. Great people there. Uh, a ton of people go there. In fact, right now, today, at this very moment, there are probably hundreds of people hanging out at Country Boy, drinking great beer and watching football and playing cornhole and hanging out. It's really picturesque. It's a gorgeous place. Um, and we're lucky to have the opportunity to locate there. It's extremely meaningful to Jesse and his brother John, who works with us, both Georgetown kids through and through. And we're looking forward to what we can do. How can we push the boundaries of sustainability? Um, how can we uh, how can we put into a physical form um, these these the standards that we have for Blue Run, right? If you can envision what the bottle became, how do we apply that sort of thinking to what a distillery can be?
Yeah.
And so, Matt, I can't wait for this thing to get built and have you come and visit it.
Can't wait.
And it's not gonna be your standard everyday like kind of tilt up distillery.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. I'm about to dive into the second one.
Yeah, what do you
This is
got?
the this is the Blue Run High Rye Batch 2. Uh, again, I believe distilled from Castle and Key still.
Yeah.
March 2022. This was released 111 on the proof. This one has the one that my wife wants, the iridescent butterfly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was stoked when this came, and she was like, "Oh, I can have the butterfly." I was just trying to figure out how to pull the butterfly off the off the real bottle, like the you know
Yeah.
retail bottles. 65% corn, 30% rye, 5% malted barley. Same thing, a bright caramel color to it. MSRP again around the $100 or so. I mean, I feel like it's well worth the price tag with the way that one is. I haven't tried this one yet. I'm gonna pour it, but the notes that I have: light cinnamon on the nose, sweet caramel, a touch of oak, palate, rye spice, caramel sweetness, cinnamon spice again, and then on the finish, I should expect rye spice, notes of caramel and cinnamon. While I pour this and dive into it, can you tell us a little bit more about this?
I would love to. I would love to. This is the High Rye Batch 2 has become my go-to everyday pour. So, like you said, this was contract distilled by Jim Rutledge at Castle and Key. Um, it's I mean, I think it's just the right mouth feel. It's well balanced.
Wow.
What do you
Yeah.
got? Tell me. I'll stop talking for a second. I want to hear what you think.
No. So like you see 111 and you expect a punch, right?
Yeah.
The heat. No, and I'm not a rye guy by any means. I tend to steer more towards the bourbon, but this super smooth. Again, that caramel, that hint of cinnamon, if you would, but nothing overpowering. It's that those are just kind of like the flavors that you get. Amazing. For like I said, for a rye, that would be. I mean, the first one was good, great, but from a rye perspective, this is probably going to be my favorite rye for sure.
That's awesome. It's I, back in the day, I would make my everyday pour something that was, you know, call it middle shelf, but it was more like bottom shelf. I've gotten to this point where I don't want an everyday drinker to be this type of thing where it's like I'm not fully enjoying it anymore. And that high rye has become that everyday pour for me because I really enjoy it. I think it's something special. It's like I can have it alone. I could sit down with like guac and chips and enjoy it. It can have it with dinner. It could be a great after dinner drink. It's like it's really versatile to me. Um,
Hmm.
and I like the full weight of it, neat, which looks like how you're taking it.
Yep.
Um, it's just it's got those kind of like you say the kind of the backup notes or the backup dancers with the cinnamon and all the other things. But I, like you, wasn't a real rye fan. First of all, until I had our golden rye, which was kind of the eye opener. But then, high rye bourbon that you're drinking now, for me, is like a perfect blend of it, just enough of that rye spice to make me want more.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly overwhelming at the same time.
No, like I said, it's very smooth, very like you said. It's not a crazy hint. I think hint is the perfect terminology to use when it comes to like you said, those backup dancers, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like, if you think about it, you're like, yep, it's there, but from nowhere near an expert in this, I would say the smoothness. There's no heat. It's a very, like you said, versatile. You can have this, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or you can have it, you can have it after dinner. It is one of those pours that you can give to somebody and know that they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny you mentioned the time because it made me think of we did this thing called the 12 days last December, and one of the bottles was named breakfast bourbon. So, is it okay to drink breakfast bourbon, any time of day, kind of like Denny's,
why not? Yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah, good.
I mean, mimosas are acceptable. I feel Bloody Marys are acceptable. Even a
They are.
screwdriver. Why
Yeah,
not have a neat pour of bourbon?
right. Good. Okay. So we agree on that. That's perfect.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, done. Let's make it law.
uh, let's get into some of the other offerings from Blue Run and your regular production options that folks can find at the retailer stores.
Sure. So, at this moment in time, I think um, the three kind of everyday options that you can find on a shelf today would be the two that you're drinking. So that's Reflection One, that's a bourbon. High Rye, that's a bourbon, and Golden Rye. And And so those are out there. We're in 22 states in Canada right now. And obviously, go to our website, type in, find a retailer, make sure you call before you go.
That's bluerunspirits.com.
Bluerunspirits.com, yeah. Find a retailer near you. Please, please, please pick up the phone call so you don't drive over there and come up empty-handed. There's also the Flight series, which launched online a couple days ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's fun.
What was that all about? I know that there was like specific releases on specific days, and I missed out on it because I saw it too late. But can you tell us a little bit about what that whole experience was all about?
Yeah, so the theory, the working theory that we have is that the term small batch means nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you and I, the Matt and Mike Bourbon Company could release a small batch bourbon that's a blend of 10,000 barrels, right? Yep. And that could be small batch.
As long as it's smaller than your regular production, there's really no definition. There's no, there's no
industry
rule.
Standard.
Yeah, there's no industry standard on what a small batch is. I know, like, for example, there's some that I think Willet actually makes a small batch, which is 10 barrels. Not 200, not 1,000. It's 10 barrels. And so, okay, that's a small batch in my opinion. But I mean, I've also seen small batches that include, 200 barrels. And you're like, well, how
small is that really? So we came up with this term micro batch. And the definition for a micro batch from Blue Run's perspective is that it's between 2 and 5 barrels.
Wow. Okay.
That's it. So it allows Shaylin to show off her blending skills. It's not quite a single barrel, but sometimes, 1 + 1 plus Shaylin is like 5, and so she took, I think, 18 or 19 barrels, and came up with 6 distinct blends, that, are like, you can tell they're related, but they seem like maybe they're distant cousins, but distant cousins from around the world.
Yeah.
And so we had some fun with the naming conventions on those two things, like Seattle Downpour. What's another one? Washington Apple Orchard, Lahaina Luau, Marrakesh Market. Anyway, there were 6 of them, and the names are meant to. We worked with the tasting notes and zeroed in on some of the more pronounced flavor profiles, and came up with fun names, but also named in a way that can transport someone to that place.
Okay.
Can you sit down and have a pour of Lahaina Luau and feel like you're in Maui? Maybe. I think so. Can you have a pour of Marrakesh Market and feel like you've just walked through a Moroccan spice market? And for me, the answer is yes. For me, the answer is yes. Alpine Meadows, same thing. Can you be in the middle of a forest and surrounded by a bunch of beautiful flowers and trees and foliage, and maybe a ski run behind you? And so that was a lot of fun. We those sold out really fast online. But the beauty of the Flight series is that we're also sending a little bit more than half of it to retailers around the country. And so for the highly motivated bourbon hunter, you know, I would suggest getting on the phone with your local retailers and trying to figure out when it's going to be there, how many they'll have. I'm going to be trying to do the same. I got shut out online. I didn't purchase a single bottle, and I would really like to find a couple if it's possible. You know, one thing that is different about Blue Run than I think a lot of other companies, where you'll see, like, instead of having this shelf behind me that has, you know, all of our bottles, and, you know, look at me, I've got 1,000 bottles of Blue Run. We realize that it's hard for people to get their hands on Blue Run because, you know, we don't release massive quantities of product. And so if we took it all for ourselves, there wouldn't be a lot out there for other people. So, you know, if we want it, we got to go find it.
No, it's fair enough. I know that you're one of the states that you're in is here in Illinois, and our major big box liquor store, the Binny's, 46 locations, I believe.
Yep.
I was able to find, that's where actually my buddy was able to grab that one bottle that I had when I first tried it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else comes from Blue Run. With that, so it's time to pick your favorite child. I think we've already talked about it, but in your opinion, what would be the favorite creation so far?
Oh, I mean, that's really tough, Matt. Barrel number 10 is from the 13 and a half is right up there. High Rye Batch 2 is right up there. I think Golden Rye, I don't care between the batches. Batch 1, Batch 2, both great. Flight Series Marrakesh Market is probably my favorite, though I think Seattle Downpour is close second. I'll get there. I'm narrowing. You know, the 13-year, I think fall for me. A lot of people argue winter was better than fall, but I think the fall was better. 14-year, that was good too.
I mean, we could just list everything that Blue Run makes. I mean,
yeah, right. I could do that. 12 days. The 12 days. Island Spice Cake, I think, was mine. My favorite. So, but yeah, I got to pick one, huh? It's real Sophie's choice. It's so unfair. Right? It's so unfair. But let's see here. So, you know, we probably answered this already. It's barrel number 10.
The unicorn.
The 13 and a half year single barrels. Yeah. That is not only the unicorn, but that is the one that speaks to my soul.
I got to find it. Speaking of creations, can you let us in on any upcoming projects, special releases, or new editions coming soon?
Yeah, well, yes, I can. And, you know, excited to say that we have another rye coming out, and it's called Emerald. So Emerald Rye is you know, about a month and a half away.
Is that going to have a green or an emerald butterfly on it?
It'll have some tint to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, December 1st through the 12th, I suggest everybody get ready for the second edition of the 12 days. You know, some people call it the 12 days of Christmas. Some people call it the 12 days of bourbon. But we're going to do one release a day for 12 days in a row of Shaylin Gammon selected single barrels. And
oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm excited about those. Those will come in a fancy box designed by Devin. You know, they're fun, they're seasonal, they're exciting. But I would say do not sleep on Emerald Rye. And if you're for your listeners out there, and Matt, for you yourself, if you don't gravitate toward rye, I totally get it. Try golden rye, try emerald rye, and then get back to me.
Okay.
Because I think that these two ryes, and they're very different from each other. These two ryes should be eye openers.
Wow. Yeah. If it's anything like this rye, I'm in. Let me know when and where I can find it, and I will be there. Segueing into the future, where would you like to see Blue Run? I mean, today's the second, birthday in 10 years. On the 10th birthday, where do you want to see Blue Run?
Wow, 12 years old, huh? That's crazy. It's like almost the age of my daughter. I can't believe it's gonna be wild to have made it that far. I would like to see us having a thriving distillery that is a place that people enjoy visiting. That isn't just like, oh, we're going on the Bourbon Trail and, we're stopping by, but like that Blue Run becomes a place that people want to come hang out and spend time, and be that type of place that isn't just like a place that people who live in Kentucky take friends and family when they come into town.
Yeah.
Right? Like I grew up in the Seattle area, and would I ever go to the Space Needle on my own? Nah, probably not. I do it when people came into town. How do we make Blue Run the type of place that people are like, man, this place is really cool. I just want to hang out there. I feel comfortable there. It feels like home. Sometimes you go to, I don't know if you have this feeling, but sometimes you go to a friend's house or an acquaintance's house, and it's like they've got a bunch of fancy furniture, so nice that you feel like, man, am I allowed to sit there? It doesn't always feel like very warm and inviting and comforting. And so that's what Blue Run, in my mind, can become, is a place that's really comfortable and welcoming and fun and cool to hang out with the people there. And, we're going to hopefully have some really cool distillery only product available. And we'll hopefully continue to expand our footprint. But more than anything, Matt, the thing that I'm most interested in is deepening our relationship with the people who've helped us get this far. In 2 years, I think, we've been able to make a lot of new friends. And, for the folks who took a chance on us early, we couldn't be more grateful. We consider these folks to be, family at this point in time. So how do we just expand the tent and create more family and create more community and create more relationships? And hopefully we can get to a point where no matter where you live, you're going to be able to find a bottle and not have to, feel like you're in a knife fight to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking when you were mentioning that, there's a couple of cigar lounges in this area, and there's some breweries in this area, and same thing. There's some where you walk in, you're like, I think this is, I don't know if I should sit here or can I touch that? Like there's that spot where you just feel comfortable and you just go and you sit down, you relax, you have a drink, you have a smoke, you just kind of, you feel at second home, if you would.
Yeah. You should have this feeling where it's like you just decompress a little bit, and all is right. No matter what's going on in your life, all is right for the moment, the time that you're there. And hopefully you take some of that home with you. And, in 10 years, maybe we'll be looking at, Reflection 11,
So
we hope to be around for a while, and we hope people, continue to support us. And we just appreciate the amount of support we've received so far. It's been phenomenal.
So our listeners can check you out at bluerunspirits.com, or if you're in one of the distribution areas, you can go to your call before you go, but see if your brick and mortar has Blue Run in stock. How can people find you on social media?
Very easily. We're at Blue Run Spirits on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we just made our first TikTok post the other day as well. Yeah.
Are you dancing?
You don't want that. You don't want that. I don't want that. Maybe with a number of with a few too many pours, it could happen. But the reality is, you don't want that. So reach out to us. The reality is, if you do reach out to us, you're going to get likely me or one of my co-founders responding. But we're accessible. We're trying to build the type of brand that we would be a fan of if we had nothing to do with the company.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of the power of behind the idea, is that like this should be a company that you feel part of. Like you feel like you can reach out and actually get a hold of somebody who who's interested and who cares and who is also just like you, like no matter where you come from or what you look like, we share a common bond. And what I found is, more often than not, that common bond isn't just whiskey. It goes a lot farther and a lot deeper than that. So, reach out, find us on all the socials, check us out.
Even on TikTok.
Even on TikTok.
So as I'm about to take the band off of the cigar. This episode, I think, is going to be coming down to a nub here pretty soon. Mike, thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on, so thank you.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Until the next time we put smoke in the air and raise our glass with some of the amazing Blue Run whiskey, stay safe, stay classy, stay smoky, and we'll see you next time here at the Cigar Social.